Climate challenge, medicine mayhem, mental cleansing, we've got this.
Hey, everybody, welcome back. Hi, welcome back. We are now coming into the open forum. And as I said before we went to break, the open forum is really the heart and soul of an IGF because this is the open area where all stakeholders can discuss, can ask, discuss, bring up anything that you want to in regards to the field of internet governance. So I'm Jacqueline Morris, chair of the TT Mag, and we will also have with us some of the directors of the TT Mag, Dr. Patrick Hossain and Ajmal Nazir, and I'm not sure who else will be joining us for this session. So does anyone have anything that they'd like to discuss, ask, bring up with regard to internet governance?
Jackie, I'd like to pose a question, if I may.
Sure.
I think all of us here, and whether it's TTIGF or the Caribbean IGF, this continues to be rarefied air in terms of the reach and the access of internet governance. We have served in quite a few parts of either ICANN or the IGF, and it doesn't, unless my imagination is completely off. But the outreach and trying to move from where we are at the moment to reaching governments and reaching international organizations in the region, trying to see if we can weave internet governance policy into national deliberations continues to be a challenge. And I think the question now is, where do we go from here? There is a limited amount of work that could be done. And how do we reach out to the largest stakeholders to make a case for the importance of internet governance and establish that nexus between, I guess, internet governance and national and regional development? But no doubt we've been trying, and there may be different levels of success in other parts of the region, but certainly I don't think we are anywhere near where where we should be in terms of the implementation of internet governance at a regional level. Thanks.
Okay, Ajmal, do you want to start with that, or do you want me to just?
I'll let you go ahead. I was just a little distracted there.
Okay. Well, this is the thing. Internet governance is, because it's such a catch-all thing, people seem to, it's really big and it's difficult. It's kind of like eating an elephant. You know, it's really a large thing to get your head around. And so I'm not sure, but I mean, I've been in this for what, with you, Lance, like what, over 20 years. And we've reached out, but there's also, I'm not sure how to put it, but there is this thing about breaking it down to specific areas where we find people, so we go to people in their space. So, for example, in this IGF, we had the education aspect. So we bring in the educators, and we have technical people, and we have people who, tomorrow we've got disaster resilience. And so hopefully there'll be people there who are interested in climate and geography and that sort of thing. John, did you have something to say about this?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I was just wondering, I mean, Antigua is one success story. I mean, can't we leverage on what Antigua has done?
What has Antigua done?
Well, I mean, they have capitalized on their domain is one example, and they have leading some of the new discussions in AI and so on. So they must be doing something right. So can't we leverage on what they have done to try to bring other countries, you know, in that vein? I know one other country is looking at trying to take control of their domain. So just throwing that out there for discussion. I mean, I haven't been too much on the cutting edge of where things are in terms of internet governance, but you know, grateful for some feedback on that.
Nigel, I know you're working with the CCTLDs.
Yes, thank you, Jacqueline. I kind of only got the last part of Lance's comment, but what I gathered is that there is, he's perceived that maybe we could do better in terms of awareness and involvement with internet governance and so on and so on. I would say for the ones who really involved with the internet governance, I think they will always see that or feel that, you know, maybe we're not where we want to be or are supposed to be. I was listening to Sally Wentworth's comment this morning. And one of the things she said is not endorsing the GDC because I get, as I understand it, they weren't quite satisfied with the inclusiveness of the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But I don't know. It's a question of, to me, it's a question of recognizing progress. Right. So from my vantage point of the CTU, certainly, and I've been involved a lot with IG around the Caribbean, we've seen movement. We've seen improvement. Certainly, we could always say there is a lot more to be done. You know, there's a long way to go still. But I think progress is being made, and I think we need to recognize that. The fact that there is a TTIGF going for 9 years now shows that we've made some progress over the years. All right, we have a TTIGF that's consistent. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is another one that is consistent, and Barbados not as consistent, but we've made some progress in terms of getting a multi-stakeholder type of group or discussions going in Barbados, right? And like you said, Jacqueline, trying to reach people where they are. You made the comment in terms of sector, but from the Caribbean point of view, I would make the comment in terms of national efforts, right? So part of what we specifically aimed to do with the CIGF was reach out to the national communities. And yes, there is only 3 examples I could call out of 20 countries. So yeah, definitely we have a lot more that we need to do there, and we need to review the strategy that we've been using. We also have made efforts at sectors, right? CCTLDs in particular in this TTIGF. There's going to be a session tomorrow where we reach out to them again. And this is something that at the CTU level, we had been doing, I would say we would have done at least twice before over the years. I would take the comment from the point of view of, yes, we want to be more effective, and maybe we could look for some more effective methods. Maybe we need to evolve the methods we've been using and so on. But I think we should also recognize that progress has been made over the years. I'll stop.
I agree, because I mean, I remember the first ones that we had, it was the first conversations with 10, 15 people, and we've got hundreds of people now talking about this around the thing. Devanand. Yeah.
Hi, this is Devanand Tilak Singh. So Lance, let me ask a question, and I guess to throw it back to you. What region or what country or what region do you think has done internet governance well? I mean, yes, I understand what you're saying about the Caribbean, but is there a particular territory or region that you looked at and thought, wow, that country or region is really taking internet governance in a multi-stakeholder way, etc.? Because I struggle to find good example, because I think internet governance as a whole globally is still a very hard thing for people to get involved in, to understand the topics, and because it requires study and listening to a lot of different perspectives from the different stakeholders, and then forming opinions. Just to comment on what John was saying, I think John wasn't referring to Antigua, he was referring to Anguilla, which has the .ai, and which has seen a rise in CCTLD registrations due to its happenstance to have .ai as their CCTLD.
Right. But .ai isn't run by Anguillans. It isn't run in Anguilla. It's outsourced to a large company.
Yes, now it is. Yes, it was run by a private individual before, but now it's I think Identity Digital.
Yeah.
Is now handling the back end, which was just recently announced. Yeah.
I think Abdullah, and then Dr. Hussain, and then Albert.
Hi, more of a observation than a question. Jackie, I was just pleasantly surprised. I think in one of the slides I saw the .tt, and then there was the word trust in the middle of it. I think it was in the DNSSEC slide. And actually, I was kind of wondering what progress, if any, we've made in terms of, because the .tt, our country level domain is our national asset. At least that's how we used to refer to it back in the day. What, if any, progress has been made, and as we just mentioned, Anguilla, in terms of promoting the .tt domain for businesses and so on? Because this is something I like to observe. When I see a business with a .tt domain or .co.tt, I usually feel like, okay, well, they're actually utilizing the domain. Not to put Professor Hussain on the spot, but is there any movement in that regard? That was my question.
Well, Patrick, you're next up anyway.
Yeah, so over the years we've tried different things to encourage locals to use .tt. In fact, as you know, it costs locals half as much as foreigners to register a .tt domain. We've worked with different chambers. George Gobet has been leading that. We've worked with different chambers trying to offer incentives to different companies to go with .tt instead of name tt.com. We will continue. I mean, we do not have, .tt, we haven't been able to find something that you would, like .ai has artificial intelligence. So that was the reason it has grown so quickly. But in terms of security, you mentioned something about security or trust. I'm not sure what that was about, but we do support DNSSEC. We've supported DNSSEC, for instance, for I think over 8 or 9 years now. So it's just a matter of local companies taking advantage of these additional things we support. One other thing I want to talk about in terms of internet governance, with respect to the other islands, I think one of the reasons why we have TTIGF and we have a TTMAG, etc., is because the local CCTLD, kind of blowing my own horn here, has been supporting them. I mean, we were the ones who kind of initiated the TTMAG, years ago. Initially, it was sort of an ad hoc group, and we formalized it, etc. We do support, we provide funding to them as well in the past, especially for things like attending ICANN conferences, etc. We also support the TTIGF. They have been able to get funding from various organizations, but we have to close the gap in the end. So the point I'm trying to make is that I think what needs to happen in the other islands is to get the local CCTLDs to start supporting some of these efforts, IGF efforts. Unfortunately, a lot of them have outsourced their administration of their domain, and that makes it difficult for those outsourced. Well, it's not difficult, but the outsourced companies have to be the ones who would support the local IGF initiatives. But I think, again, the main issue is support, and TGNIC has been pushing not only with respect to IGF or internet governance, but in terms of research. We do quite a bit of stuff in research and education as well. So it's all a matter of having the local CCTLDs move forward and do more than they have been doing. Thanks.
Albert, your hand was up next.
Thank you very much, Jacqueline. I'll start with your comment about the elephant, and you're absolutely right. It is a big job to eat the entire elephant, and we have to decompose and look at small pieces bit by bit. There was the comment, I agree with Dev. I think perhaps he was speaking about .ai, although .ag also is in a sort of favorable position with regard to their top-level domain, because .ag means limited in German, so you find that they have been doing quite a bit in that area. But we need to recognize that there are different aspects to internet governance, and we can't do the whole thing at once. And Nigel is very right. There's a lot of good that has happened. There are a lot of significant achievements. The Caribbean IGF, the work that CTU has done in collaboration with ICANN with regard to trying to help CCTLDs. ICANN has worked also with other entities to try to help the CCTLDs. In 2007, we had a meeting looking at the different models for running CCTLDs. And one key issue is that as much as we've been doing this in some cases for over 20 years. I think we simply have to recognize that our work has to continue. We need to continue with the awareness. We need to continue with the capacity building. And we need to hold our breath and continue to try to bring new people on board with regard to internet governance. Just yesterday, I was in Curacao and speaking with some government officials who are involved in managing the CCTLD. They've dissolved their parliament and called elections. So there will be a period of about a month where inputs from stakeholders in Anguilla are not going to be directly feeding into the management of their CCTLD. So you have those kinds of issues where the political system puts us in a position where from time to time you literally have to start over in terms of capacity building and awareness raising with regard to certain aspects of internet governance. So I think to sum it all up, it's a situation where we need to continue what we're doing in terms of building awareness, doing capacity building, and try to concentrate a little bit more on sustainability, continuing to completion efforts that we actually start.
Thank you. Lance, your hand is up. You started.
Sorry. One to answer Dev that I wasn't necessarily comparing us in terms of where we are or where we should be versus any other jurisdiction. I was merely my direct concern is where we should be in terms of what internet governance should hopefully be able to do for us as a region in terms of progressing, in terms of growth, and in terms of general advancement. So I know things are different in other countries. I remember when we first went to form La Coralo in Argentina, and then we left there and we went in there as technologists primarily. And then when we went to our first ICANN meeting, I think it was in Sao Paulo, and then ran into a room of lawyers and policymakers, and then begin to realize that the whole concept of ICANN and internet governance was an entirely different thing from what we might imagine, because we, coming out of there, certainly I thought that this was a lot about tech and what have you, and run into an entirely different ball game in terms of economics and legal efforts, and some intellectual property in terms of ownership of domains and that type of stuff. So this really was an evolved conversation after that. So really, when I talk about the next steps in terms of how we go forward and how we reach those who can who could help with buy-in and who could help with adoption of the ground, that is really my interest in terms of how do we now fashion the message. Do we need to fashion the message any better than we're doing it? Or is it a reality that IG is always going to have is always going to be in that limited space that, that we have to work with? Could we do? I mean, we've been around for quite a while. And if it is that things take time, fine. But I just think we need to be able to think now about, in 2024, where do we go from here in terms of our application of IG?
No, you're right. I went into that from the policy development side, because remember, that's where I came in with the UN and, developed all that whole policy development and bringing and gender and so on. And that's how I came in, even though I did do technology, but I wasn't coming from a position of technology. But that has been the stakeholder group, the people who have come onto this most, from what I've seen, is that it has, in the Caribbean especially, taken a technology bent and not quite so much a social type thing. And it's one of the things that, depending on where you are, the multi-stakeholder group is going to be different stakeholders, and the balance differs depending on where you are. and I think Albert will agree with that because you travel all over for ICANN, and depending on where you are, some people will be ready to jump on, and those might be the technology people, or if it's in some other places, it might be the legal people. Like we know we got all those people from EFF and the various law schools in the States, where a lot of them came in on it very early. And I don't think that we need representation from every sector, but I don't think that we need to be upset that we don't have enough from one sector or the other just yet. Because I think remember, we also came in with very low internet penetration and so on. So a lot of people, the people who knew about internet, were excited about internet, were technology people. Now, 20 years later, everybody's on internet. So I think we'll start seeing a lot more people, especially when they realize, hey, my business depends on this. Maybe I should start thinking about how it's managed so that I can have a say in if there's an issue with internet and my business, I can come in and have a say. If there's an issue with internet and whatever I'm doing. But I think I agree with Nigel. It has improved drastically since those early days.
What is something that is going to be very interesting, I think, is and this will probably show the ability in this neck of the woods. And I include Latin America as well. ICANN for the first time has put out probably the most favorable opportunity to be able to apply for generic top-level domains with an application program to do that. And I think it doesn't, I think we have until next year to be able to do it. But it's going to be very interesting to see whether we can participate at any level. The conditions are set in terms of how you do it. I think the last time I checked the link, out of some of the other lesser developed regions or underserved regions, there probably about 16. There could be more by now who have expressed an interest in participating in the program. But it will be interesting to see as the year goes by whether there is any chance. There may be some creative ways to do it, but if there's any chance of us or even Latin America participating in that as well, it's $30,000. I think some will argue that that's even for this region that's too high, but it's going to be interesting to see whether any sectors, business, NGOs, or international, the IGOs, anybody would have the wherewithal to participate in that. I don't know whether that chance is going to come around again. I suppose it will be based on what comes out of this experiment. But it's going to be interesting to see if anybody could respond from this neck of the woods.
Albert, go ahead.
Thanks, Jacqueline. I don't know if it's any motivation, but Lance is right. There's a tremendous opportunity now for the Caribbean, and other small island developing states to get involved in perhaps getting a new top-level generic domain name. But this opportunity has arisen because of the strong and sustained voices that have been in ICANN advocating for this kind of thing. Okay, Jacqueline, yourself, Lance, Carlton and others. I mean, this was no accident that the opportunity arose. And the very important thing to understand is that the more forceful voices from the Caribbean and this region, the more our situation will be understood, the better it will be understood, and the more opportunities we will have. So it's incumbent upon us, as much as some of us may feel, that we're hitting our heads, against a brick wall, saying the same thing for 20 years, and starting over every 5 years when there are elections. I think perhaps that might be an encouragement for others to realize, wow, we have this opportunity because there were voices in the ecosystem, which laid the foundation and developed a situation which gave this opportunity. So I don't know if that would encourage anyone to continue to participate in these kinds of fora.
Well, I don't know, because I had started talking to some Trinidad-based multinationals, the multi-Caribbeans. And they come down to that one question: how are we going to make money on it? And when there are easier ways of making money, because that's what basically I was told, listen, if this is how much this is going to cost, but I have all these other opportunities to put the same sum of money, and I have a duty to my shareholders and so forth, and I need to be able to be sure that there's going to be a certain return on this. And why should I put that money in this part, the domain name thing, versus things like tourism or manufacturing, opening another factory, making jam, because we're exporting soft drinks in a major way. We're exporting an awful lot of things out of Trinidad. We're manufacturing and exporting things. So it might be easier for them to say, hey, we're going to do another one of these. We're going to expand in an area that we're already making money in, rather than go into a whole new area. And especially since a lot of them really don't understand. So I don't know. I know, Albert, you've been talking. I know Nigel, y'all talk to some of those higher level CEOs and stuff, but I don't know if there's any way that you can say, how do we get them to see the opportunity? Because the money is around. We've got the money. There are people there are organizations and stuff who have the money, but the concept of why it should go into a regional GTLD isn't there.
You're right, Jacqueline. I mean, again, yesterday in Curacao at the event that Canto was having, I spoke with some of these people, and it's the same thing. I mean, and I get chased, out of certain countries when I go talking DNS, because the question that's asked, well, how is this going to affect my bottom line? And you're absolutely right. We should never go into any kind of business, and this is Albert Daniels talking now, unless we can see good return on investment. But speaking from a broader perspective, though, I do feel that we are making a little bit of progress, or maybe more than that, in the Caribbean, because of the involvement and because of the inputs that have been occurring due to events like the TTIGF, like the CIGF, where we raise more awareness, we explain to more people what this thing is all about, and show them that particular opportunity. So from that perspective, I'm happy to continue doing what we are doing here and encouraging new persons to get in. But Jacqueline, you're right. In the end, it will come down to, how does this, benefit you and what's in it for you?
I had floated locally. I took a slightly different tack, and I went down the road of the brand GTLD. So we have some multinationals here, and one of the things, because I don't think the GTLD as a function you might not convince anybody to make money, but I was going along the .Amazon model, where some of the multinationals say, well, look, if you could have a talk with .Answer, because they have so many products under their conglomerate. I was talking with the local producer, the local rum producer here, because they do so many other things. And I said, well, look, if in this way you could have everything under one brand, .answer, .ddl, .gkrs, or something like that. And that might be the only attraction that I see. The only slight hedge with that is some of the limits that they've put in terms of how much money a company can make and how much the SMEs could earn. So they may have to be, if anybody bites at that, they may have to be, we'll have to go back to Albert a bit to have a talk about some creativity in terms of how it is possible to apply it. Because as it stands now, is a little outside of the rules. But there may be room to have a discussion. But certainly from this end, I mean, the response may be different in other parts of the Caribbean. But certainly in our initial discussions, there was some interest in the brand GTLA, and especially some of those who might have come through the geographic indicator exercise, like what two of the companies here would have gone through. So they've spent money in applying, intellectual assets and property. They've had experience doing that. So the argument is not as hard, but again, you still have to make the case to close it. But that may be an avenue that we could look at in the region as well.
Just quickly, Jackie, to say that the Latin American Caribbean engagement team at ICANN has renamed the way we do our roadshow / LACI roadshow, and we're calling it ICANN Near You. And it is specifically, to bring home the point that we want to come close to you. We want to come into these countries and find out, like how what Lance is saying right now. How do you think it's best to approach a particular issue in your specific region and take that back and see how we can work with you to actually make that a reality? So, I mean, I'm here in Trinidad for a day or two. Lance, from time to time, I'm with you as well. But I'm happy to work with any stakeholder to see how we can refine this to bring it to the point where advantage can be taken of the opportunities that are there.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments, topic you want to bring up? Intellectual TTIPO, anything about intellectual property and the internet that you'd like to have us discuss?
Jackie, is this the forum for government policy on work from home?
You can talk about it. I don't know anything about it, so I can't say anything about it. I don't think there's anyone here from that ministry who, yeah.
Right, just throwing it out there. I can't speak on it either.
But we could talk about work from home in general. I mean, I work from home. I got hired on at the judiciary in the middle of COVID and at the beginning, kind of the beginning of COVID. And I have an office and I go there once or twice a month, maybe. But I have an issue. I just have an issue with air conditioning and so on. I get quite sick. So I have a logical reason to work from my house. But a lot of people who started working from home during the pandemic and stuff, business-wise, but not the government yet, have really not totally gone back. It would be interesting to find out how many people are still, even without the official work from home policies, how many people are still flexible and working from home.
I only brought this up because I have had an interesting conversation with a colleague recently who born and raised in the Caracas and works in Port of Spain. And
oh, Lord.
Yeah, no, he doesn't commute from the Caracas, to be clear, but obviously that would be crazy. But we were talking about in our conversation about the benefits as an IT person working from home and not having to get dressed, shirt and pants, iron and so on, just to come to work to code and then go back home. So and then all the implications around that, working from home in terms of development of the local like supermarkets and so on in the area, because now you don't have to go out to town. All those kind of benefits kind of came up. And then not having to rent, all those things came up. So I just thought, you were asking for topics. I just thought I'd throw it out there. And then of course, there's the internet and broadband in those regions and so. But he did say in the Caracas, they do get good service broadband. So there's that.
Okay, there's one comment. Oh, two comments in the chat from Lalu Ramlal. The first is internet governance. Is our internet governance situation stifling our leverage of internet technologies and services? And he suggests we undertake a study to find the gaps and develop strategies to fill them. And the second comment is we can investigate whether ICT policy and strategy address cybersecurity and internet governance. Is there the need for improvement of that policy? I don't know if there's anyone around who can speak to that. Maybe Stephen or John. No one? Because I really can't speak to any of the ICT policy and strategy, because I have to admit, shame, I have not actually gone through the policy properly yet, the latest one, because that's not what my job is right now. Okay, so any other topics you'd like to mention? No one?
Jackie, was it?
I really can't speak to any of the ICT policy and strategy, because I have to admit, shame, I have not actually gone through the policy properly yet, the latest one, because anyone else?
Jackie, I heard you mention Stephen. Was it Stephen Abiraj you were talking about?
Yeah, it was you.
Oh, okay. Well, no, I don't wear the hat that could answer that question properly. I am now at the Ministry of Works and Transport.
Okay.
So I wouldn't step into an area that is not my own.
Not anymore.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Okay, not a problem.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. So,
All right. Well, all right. This is David Antiluxing. Yeah, and one thing, and I think it touches back a little bit on the internet governance, and I think what I'm kind of concerned is there's still a sense of, I feel anyway, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm the issue, is that we're still very isolated among the islands and not collaborating enough when it comes to issues affecting us. And it doesn't have to be very super technical issues, because it's really the issues that affect you as an end user of the internet and technology, digital divide issues and so forth. And I don't really get a sense of what's happening all across the islands, what's happening, and that gap really frustrates me, because I mean, I could go online and find the gaps in lots of other territories and regions and Europe and all of these kinds of things, but I don't really get a sense of what's happening here in the Caribbean. And so I think I would think that one of the things we have to improve is the better collaboration along the stakeholders, not just along the islands, but across all the islands itself. I'd like to see that type of thing happening, and that I think that way we can get a better sense of what our gaps are, and then we can try to help each other. And when it comes to issues like getting involved in internet governance issues at ICANN, then we could just start splitting up tasks. Not everybody has to be on the GTLD. Somebody could just tackle the the replacement for WHOIS, I should say, and things like that. How do we work together to do things like data privacy laws? Because I don't get a sense that we're working in coordination to unify our data privacy laws so that it's uniform, like, say, the GDPR, which is uniform across all of Europe. So, which I think is ideal, to have that kind of unified data privacy, so that if you're an app developer or whatever, you don't have to worry about 14 different or 15 different jurisdictions with differing laws, which makes it well, raises the cost of developing, makes it impossible. So just throwing that out there.
Well, I know that CARICOM has been doing some of that stuff. I don't know if Nigel, I think you might know a lot more about it, but there's a lot of work being done with harmonization, especially with the laws across the Caribbean. It's been going on for a while. I haven't been involved in it for like 15 years, but I was involved previously. And there was like a draft set of laws, and then everybody kind of made a few tweaks, but the basic ones were, the base was the same across the place. Nigel?
Yeah, that was the HIPCAR, the HIPCAR
Yes.
project, right, Nigel?
Right,
Yes.
exactly. That was HIPCAR project, and believe it or not, that was between 2009 and 2012. So a lot has happened since then, and there is a move to do another phase of HIPCAR, to take into account the more modern developments in ICT and so on. That HIPCAR was done under the auspices of the ITU, and we are working with the ITU again to see to put in place like a second phase that would get us there. You mentioned CARICOM and harmonization. Well, CTU does a lot of harmonization work in different aspects of ICT. Just in terms of CARICOM, they currently have a project on to assess the status of ICT policy, legislation, and so on in the various CARICOM member states to identify gaps that we can address head-on to forge greater harmonization. So, as I said, stuff is going on. It's really not necessarily going on at the pace we would like to see it happen. But, and some of that sometimes is resource limitations, money or personnel, as the case might be. But I think the points are taken that we want to harmonize and efforts are being made to do so. We could always complain about the pace at which it's...
Yeah. But there is one thing. I have noticed that people in the Caribbean like to do things behind closed doors and they don't tell people. They do things and we do not like to tell people what we're doing. And I think that's one of your problems, Dave, right? That you weren't caring about anything. And so we've got two, I think there's one thing. We need people who are working on things like CTU to tell us what you're doing.
All right.
And
so
we also try and figure out some sort of we have the CIGF, but how do you facilitate those people who have met and have and exchange ideas in the CIGF? How do you facilitate us working around the Caribbean afterwards? Should we do like a hub, some sort of where we can just go on and a WhatsApp, something where we go on and post, hey, I'm doing this. No, I'm doing that. What are you doing? How can you help? And then before we find out, hey, we're doing the same thing.
Yes.
And we're duplicating efforts.
Yeah. No, the point is taken. And in fact, what we call the intersessional work is one of the areas we've been trying to improve, and it's been recognized even in the CIGF as well. We've been trying to use our website to do some of what you're talking about there, via discussion fora and stuff like that. It hasn't been consistently effective. When we first put it in, I think there was some interest, but lots of other things going on, and people don't necessarily remember to go on a discussion forum to do something. But suffice it to say, though, that there is information on the CTU website, sometimes in terms of documents that we've done, the program of events, for example. So if you want to know what CTU is doing, some information is there. Other than that, you would have to contact us to find out whatever.
Yeah. The hard
CARICOM,
part is going and look for information as opposed to information coming to you.
coming to you.
I
Yeah,
want to sit back and let somebody tell me something happening. The same way people ask me, how do I know about all these threats? Because people send it to me in my WhatsApp. People
right,
send, I get it.
right.
I don't go
Well,
out
we
and
do have a
look.
few different WhatsApp groups related, at least two related to IG in the Caribbean. And there's one related to AI as well that we've been sending information out. It's not so easy for people to get into it, though, if you understand what I mean. It's not like it's out there that, or maybe we could, maybe there may be a way we could find to put it on our website so that if anyone wants to join,
You could sign up and
we
then
could
you
sign up. We could
decide
have them
if
sign up.
you want
Yes.
it. And then you could
Yeah.
find out who we are and decide if we are going to be
Yeah.
useful. And you can bring us in. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Albert, you had a
Yes, thank you, Jacqueline. I'd like to respond to your comment, about not knowing what's going on. And it's not to say that I want you to include me in all of those WhatsApp groups for the feds, but I really wanted to congratulate the CTU on this coordinating role that it has been playing across our Caribbean region because, I've seen it in the old days, how it used to be and where it is now. These names, Bevel, Shernan, and Kevon, and others. We used to sit together because we found that it was just difficult to figure out what meetings were taking place in the Caribbean. I remember sitting in Cancun one time, the four of us, and saying, okay, what are you doing at ICANN? What are you doing at ARIN? What are you doing at LACNIC and so on? And we agreed amongst ourselves that we would keep a joint calendar. The CTU, thanks to Nigel and Rodney and others, have taken it to the next level with these industry watch meetings that they have every quarter and talk about what meetings are coming up and how do we go about preparing for them. So Jackie, you're right. We need to have these mechanisms by which we know what the others are doing. And the CTU has been doing a fantastic job. Sometimes I wonder how they can do all of these things with the resources that they have at their disposal. But kudos to you, Nigel and Rodney and all the staff at the CTU. And we really need to support, that coordinating role that the CTU is playing. And whoever else can come on board to extend that, we see how we can work together.
I see Tracy posted a question, Jackie.
Tracy's question was, what are our thoughts about the planned Tier 4 data center in Phoenix Park in Trinidad and Tobago? Is Trinidad and Tobago ready to become a regional data hub? And I can tell you, I know very little about the details of that data center. I don't know who does.
Yeah,
Well, I cannot speak on behalf of the data centers themselves, but again, at the Canto meeting, we were reminded that there is a Caribbean Data Center Association, which is being driven by Blue Nap of the Americas. There is a very up-to-date data center in Curacao itself, and what they are trying to do is to connect data centers across the Caribbean. So there's a lot happening with regard to data centers, but that's not an area of my expertise. I'm sure there are others who may be more knowledgeable about this, but Tracy's right. That is something that we could be talking about.
Wasn't cost an issue in some of the initial discussions? I remember Digicel quite a few years ago trying to offer this service. I don't know where it is now.
Tracy, your hand is up. Go ahead.
Yes, thanks. So I'm not going to answer Lance's question because I'm not sure. Sorry, I have a cough. What happened there? But the question I posed is related not so much, I think, to is it physically possible? I'm sure it is. Trinidad and Tobago has, I would say, maybe a dated legislative regime for data, not just data protection, just data. Full stop.
Basically, data governance,
Exactly. Yeah.
protection,
So,
privacy, the whole 9 yards.
so without getting into that specifically, I remember there was some time we talked about a Caribbean data protection regime. We talked about that. We talked about having harmonized policies. I think that's why I was triggering my question, Nigel's HIPCA, let's say HIPCA Part 2 or Back to the Future plan or the sequel. I don't know what you're going to call it. So the question I have is really, or the question I'm trying to pose are, which is I think more deeper than whether Tier 4 DC is relevant in Trinidad and Tobago. It's whether or not the Caribbean almost is ready for this. So while we plan to do what like Malaysia is trying to or has tried to do, Indonesia, Southeast Asia, try to become a data hub for that part of the world, Singapore, etc., and compete for business in Southeast Asia and Asia generally. Can we compete for business with other DCs in the region? And this includes, of course, Latin America and the wider Americas region, so North America, obviously, and so on, to sort of get business beyond our small amounts of data that we have, relatively speaking. That's question A, given our regime. And question B, given the challenges we've had all over with regionalism, cricket is one. I think even partnering on doing other things. I remember talking about this, partnering on sharing applications, sharing purchasing of procurement solutions of tax systems. That's all those things we talked about years ago in sessions and never happened. Do you think we're ready to partner and collaborate on regional data sharing policies? And will this if I have my data in Trinidad and Tobago, will vex that I have my data in Trinidad and Tobago and want to take it out if they vex with us or something like that? Are those things, are we ready for it? That's the question I'm asking. And is it time for maturity in this regard? And if so, how do we do things like this? And is there a role for, let's say, an IGF type environment to play that kind of role, to harmonize these kinds of ideas? Because I think this could be a good catalyst, as Albert just talked about the Caribbean Data Center Association. If we have something like this already, then we should be talking about regional policies and regional mechanisms to make these things happen. And these, Trinidad and Tobago, Curacao, Jamaica being nodes of this policy, etc. So thoughts on that, and are we ready? Are we mature enough? And our legislative environment strong enough to deal with something like this? Thanks, especially in Trump era.
Anybody want to speak to that? I mean, my thought is, now that I know that sort of thing, I would be interested yet again finding out what's going on. That information, the lacuna of information that we have. Everybody does their thing behind their little doors and don't talk and don't share. And honestly, information is one of these things, to me, is one of these things that when you share it, it doubles and triples and quadruples. It's not one of those things that the more you share, the less you have. The more you share, the more you get. But we do need some sort of thing to get people to start sharing that. And then all these people who are interested in these things can have the conversations, because we don't have all those people here. But if there were people who were interested in data centers and they knew that, hey, there's a data center chat or a data center WhatsApp group or something, then they could join that and they could have those conversations, and these things would start to happen more organically, as opposed to kind of trying to shoehorn everything into one place at one time. But I am looking at the time, and we are over time. I had a bad timekeeper. Oh, Abdullah suggesting 20 years ago we would have had RSS feed, but now he's suggesting to have your favorite, a Slack or a Discord. And Tracy's now saying, will NVIDIA, extending the argument, will NVIDIA invest in the Caribbean, for example?
Economies of scale.
Well, it depends on what NVIDIA would invest in the Caribbean to do.
Yeah.
If it's chips, I don't know. If it's creative uses for AI, yeah. If we build up you know, a cadre of people who do what they need, possibly, you know, I would say Patrick and sit down and say, hey, what kinds of people is there research that we're doing here that NVIDIA might find interesting? But otherwise, I really have no idea. Even further, can a Carib AI, LLM, or multimodal AI, or even AGI exist in the Caribbean? I think so. I mean, Dev and Lance, you guys have started, and well, Niran, but I'm not seeing him here. But you guys have started playing around with some of those things, haven't you?
As a matter of fact, you know, it is strange that you say it, but there is possible funding globally for, you know, for a level of innovation that you might be able to get some decent support for. And I'm talking specifically about the LLM or the multimodal AI. You'd have to put together, I think the first step of that would be to put together some kind of concept note so we can see what it looks like. And then this may well be something that you could go and get, I don't want to say initial support, but these kinds of things I've seen around as I look at what, you know, large agencies fund and others fund. This may be something that may get some initial investment to start, then you go back and do from there. So it's not impossible. But, you know, you got to put some meat on that bone.
Now, so I'll go even further. So I'll announce it here. Maybe that's so people know that this can happen. While at the Global IGF, wearing my other hat, which I'm not wearing today, which is a UN organization hat. Another UN organization approached me and said, well, you know, we're looking to deploy a quantum project in the Caribbean. Where, you know, can you help? You know, we have some funding. Maybe we can find a way to have a quantum device or a quantum project established somewhere in the Caribbean, which I think would be a really interesting, you know, even beyond the AI, you know, hype.
Yeah.
Even, you know, having a university or some, you know, large entity take over a quantum project and invest in it. That actually could help us significantly with our, you know, absorbing some talent and you know, giving people things to do that are beyond the standard UE COPSI, you know, program. I don't know if Patrick or any others have any thoughts on if something like that were to happen. How is the university ready to consume? And talk about the university as a regional entity, not necessarily St. Augustine or any one campus, but the university as a regional entity. Can they consume a quantum project and make it real? Any thoughts on that? And I'm just trying to see where this can go, because, you know, we kind of stuck in a little bit of our, you know, as Lance kind of said, you know, we kind of stuck a bit. Where can we kind of break out of this stuck mode and move and take things a little further and make our discussions here, you know, move towards something just, you know, solving problems or just trying to fix things, but maybe look towards the future. And I guess coming out of a different modeling and looking in a larger global paradigm, I'm seeing things in a larger perspective and really wanting the Caribbean to move forward, having seen what's happening in Africa and Southeast Asia. Even the Pacific is doing significant things, and the Caribbean seems to be stuck a bit. So I just wanted to know, what are folks' thoughts on that?
Yeah, Tracy, as I mentioned, my name, the problem we tend to have with some of these areas is critical mass. To get sufficient students and faculty members in a particular core area to do collaborative research and develop something, you need to have a critical mass, and we could never get there because the bright students would tend to leave. So, for instance, one of my past students is now doing a PhD in quantum physics somewhere in Canada. So people like that wouldn't stick around to form this core mass. So it's not only in quantum computing, but also when we look at AI, we focus on applying data science to solve problems locally, as opposed to trying to compete or do anything at the at a higher level, because we don't have the resources, first of all. And again, when we do get, people interested in this area and they build up the expertise, they tend to migrate. But companies like NVIDIA, we've been doing some stuff with NVIDIA, working, some of my students did some work with them on their Rapids environment, CUDA. They do provide us with hardware. I mean, the hardware we use right now for some of our LLM work was donated. Well, we got it through a grant from them. So they are in a way supporting us, but we can only do as much as we can because of the fact that once the students move away from Trinidad or the region. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I think the counter to that is a chicken and egg argument, right? So if we have, is it that you bring it and they will come, or build it and they will come? So let's, for argument's sake, say that we were able to accept, whatever NVIDIA's DC donation. They've put some racks in Phoenix Park, or they buy the Phoenix. Let's say they buy the Phoenix Park location. Let's just say that, or the quantum device or quantum project is able to be provided to the university. Do you think, using that argument you had about they're leaving because of nothing, no projects here, do you think if the projects arrive, do you think they will stay?
Well, it's not only the students. I mean, we need to have the faculty members.
That's where I was going. Yes.
Right.
Attracting those are difficult.
Yeah.
When we put out openings for lecturer positions in some of these areas, you won't get them because they can make tons of money outside somewhere.
But Patrick, what about the concept of partnering with other universities? Like, for example, Dr. Gonick from ASU was here this morning, and he had brought up the possibility of, because they're doing partnering with, not in the Caribbean, but he had a map and he showed some places that in Latin America and so on that they've been partnering with. With that help?
Yeah, so we do collaborate with other universities, especially things like climate change. We've been doing, because the resources outside is much better than what we have locally. But what we provide to them is the fact that we are SIDS and they're interested in our particular set of constraints, etc. So yeah, collaboration. But we have to be careful that people are not just using us, right? Because you get it to the situation where they just want us to have them on the grant, to put our name on the grant, but they don't really have us do anything
vital or
Yeah,
useful.
yeah.
You're just toting water.
Exactly. So so we have to be careful of that. But yeah, no, we collaborate. You know, we've done some work with Korea University in areas that may not be of interest to Trinidad. This was on telecom stuff. But again, you know, to get a sufficient mass, critical mass to do it on our own, yeah, is difficult. If you look at my lab, for instance, we have a wide range of expertise because you can't get sufficient people in one area. So you know, we have people from economics, mechanical engineering, computer science, statistics, whatever you know, you could call it, and we have them. So the idea is to do more multidisciplinary research as opposed to having a core group in a specific area. I mean, when I was doing my PhD, there were like about 6 people in a specific area, and you could get assistance on that high tech, whatever was the latest technology at that point in time.
When we with the AI driven translation project we were doing in Guyana, we had actually collaborated at some point with UCLA, where kind of exchange kind of thing, that we would do the monitoring and help with some of the lecturing in a special project, and then we had the kids there actually doing some development on the project that we wanted. So it can happen, but I think a lot of it is how you position it and how you do it. It's not impossible, but it does come with some challenge, but it's not impossible. The UCLA work that we did, I think, for about 3 semesters, ending this year, is an example of some of the things that could be done. That was a special project that they were doing, and thought that they had heard of what we were trying to do. And there was a partnership there, and they had expressed willingness that if there was something similar that we were doing along the AI track with that kind of work, they were mind being involved. But you have to go back and go through the process of vetting and checking and stuff like that. But partnerships are possible along those lines, as we were just discussing.
Well, we're having a great conversation, but it is after 2:00 and we are a half hour over because conversation was good, but we should really wrap up and let everyone go get their lunch if they have not yet, and get ready for tomorrow, where tomorrow morning we start at 9 a.m. with the Youth Forum, which is going to be about bullying in the cyber age, and the youth participants will lead the discussions. And then those of us who are in country, from 1 p.m., we have the in-person space if you've registered for that. We did have limited space, so I'm not sure how many. I'll have to talk to Denise, the secretariat, about that, but the event manager, about whether there's still room for people to register and come in. But we'll still be online if you don't make it physically into the room. Yes, it will be remote as well. So it's been a very, very interesting day. Lots of great conversation. And we'll see you tomorrow. So thank you very much and have a great afternoon. Oh, and Albert, since you are here physically, quick question. You up for drinks this afternoon? Evening? I don't know when. Ajmal will say that.
Yes. Water, juice,